But when it comes to whether there's a double standard or not, or what I've seen around the hierarchy of racism,
Yes.
I think it's yes and no. It's kind of undeniable that there is, and also there isn't. So what this manufactured culture war is that they try and make something like racism where both left-wing and right-wing people, most decent people, oppose it. It doesn't matter if you're left-wing or right-wing.
Sure.
You oppose racism. But for some reason, it's like when it comes to the Tories or right-wing columnists, they turn a blind eye to racism unless it's anti-Semitism. So you have left-wing commentators, left-wing politicians, they would be against all forms of racism. So whether it's Islamophobia, against black people, against Jewish people, they're all against it. Whereas when
with the brief caveat that the big anti-Semitism scandals of the last few years have been from the quotes left. Although you would probably come back at me and say you could probably find similar conduct on the right, but because it is expected, it hasn't been scrutinised in quite the same way. But in Britain at the moment, you'd think that anti-Semitism was at least as big a problem on the left as the right.
And this is really the key point, because you mentioned about cancel culture, and the culture war is that what they've done is they made racism seem like a left-wing issue.
Yes. So
this is now the point where right-wing people can jump in. So you have all the typical people that you would expect that cheerlead for the Tories. They come out saying, where are all the people defending Wiley? Where are all these people that are coming out here that are supposedly anti-racist? It's like, aren't you supposedly anti-racist? You're a Tory, like... There shouldn't be a division. There shouldn't be sides.
So you feel, as a young black man, you can say that what Wiley said was absolutely disgusting, but when people talk about other minorities in a similarly disgusting way, they don't seem to get the response that Wiley got.
Exactly, and it's all institutionalized racism. So Wiley itself, he has his thoughts, and just in general, most racism is institutionalized. So him thinking that all Jews run the world is just something that he's ignorantly been taught throughout his life or whatever, and he's never come to the understanding of why that's an anti-Semitic trope. So he just genuinely believes it.
Yes.
That's the same with all institutionalized racism. So when people say black on black crime or see me and think I'm more violent than a white person,
yes,
again, that's institutionalized racism. These are just things that no one actually thinks. And so they'll say Britain isn't racist, or I'm not a racist. And it's because they don't, or Boris Johnson isn't a racist. But when they say blatantly racist things, and
if he'd made a sweeping, offensive generalisation about Jewish people, he wouldn't be able to laugh it off like he laughs off the watermelon smiles and pickaninnies.
Exactly that. Look at the way that Jeremy Corbyn gets treated when it's about anti-Semitism. Rightly so, because he has a lot to stand up for. But it's not even comparable to what Boris Johnson has said about black people.
So the feeling or the fear then becomes that people are, and I think this definitely happened with the Labour Party's anti-Semitism from the right, particularly if you bring Islamophobia into it, the idea that they were going to properly investigate anti-Muslim hatred in their own ranks while making huge political hay about anti-Semitism in the Labour ranks is clearly laughable. But the fear then becomes that anti-Semitism... We see, but our last caller felt perhaps that anti-Semitism didn't get the attention that other sort of bigotries and biases get.
I don't even understand how that's even possible to be looked at, because whenever there's an anti-Semitic issue, and I know you're saying that there are some that come up on the left, but you would see so many politicians, David Lammy, like I could name you hundreds of people on the left. 99% of the people on the left would be against anti-Semitism. You're talking about the 0.5% of people, some of them who have got a high profile. That
maybe. I don't know the numbers. It was fairly widespread in the party.
No, as a percentage, it was less than where it was in the Conservative Party and the Lib Dem Party. I'm not condoning it whatsoever. It was still wrong, but it was less than it was in other parties. And
maybe. I don't know that. I'll take your word for it.
So when you look like someone like Lord Sugar now, you mentioned him as someone who's having this ban.
Yeah.
Didn't this guy literally go and talk about Ethiopians, saying they look like Senegalese team? He said they look like looky men on Twitter, and he's the one now that's saying of having a ban, when he just compared all black people to looky men because they were just black people.
I haven't got that in front of me. I know he got into a bit of bother for something along those lines, and you sound very, very well informed, so I'll correct that if I need to, but I don't feel any need to do so at the moment. So it's a scale issue then as well, because I wouldn't defend, I wouldn't defend Alan Sugar, and I presume that offending tweet has been taken down. Wiley today, I think, has taken to Facebook to kind of start again after being temporarily suspended from Twitter. So for me, and I hope this is an intelligent observation and not one that is born of my privilege, but for me, it was the quantity, not the quality of what he wrote, Fudge. It was the absolute refusal to take a step back and reflect. So I'll check up on the Sugar tweet that you mentioned, but I'm pretty sure he didn't double or triple down on it, and that seemed to me to be the escalation that has led to the boycott rather than the offence. It was the escalation, and that finally, thanks to you've led me to what I actually think, which is the mode of engagement on Twitter rather than the actual content. So the Lord Sugar one, and he got absolutely criticised for this. I recognise some of these guys from the beach in Marbella, and it was it was a football team, the Senegalese football team, and a tweet, a Photoshop that had been put together like they were selling, snide designer goods on the beach in Marbella. So you were absolutely right to refer to that. But if Lord Sugar had done that 10 times and then carried on, then it would be for me, it would be a more valid comparison than it currently is. I don't know if that's fair.
I mean, if someone had done that once about Jewish people, they would not have a BBC show called The Apprentice still going on. It just wouldn't have. There's a black person in Lord Sugar's position that said something like that about Jewish people, he would be cancelled. And this is another thing, cancel culture. So this is an example of what right-wing people would call cancel culture, when all it is someone who's racist getting chucked off a platform that deservedly does.
Mate, I'm with you on that. But what we need to know is if Wiley had done one tweet, regretted it and apologised, would he have faced anything like the brouhaha that is in place today? And as a white man, I say no, he wouldn't.
And I agree with you there.
Oh, okay.
Because it was disgusting. It was the reason why.
It's the escalation, but the broader question of how come Alan Sugar can make a racist joke about black people and remain a BBC presenter while other people can't make an anti-Semitic comment without facing the full force of public outrage. That question stands, I think, Fudge, actually.